Hi, everyone. Good to see you tonight. Unbelievable, unbelievable. A bombshell report suggesting a Chinese energy company was willing to pay Hunter Biden $10 million a year for introductions alone. We're now seeing emails that seem to confirm Hunter Biden not only profited off of Ukraine, but was also trying to cash in big time on China. Lovely. And big tech. Big tech doesn't want you to know about this. They don't want you to hear about this. They are shutting down this story. The Trump campaign, just days before an election, has had its Twitter account shut down because it dared to tweet out the link to the New York Post. The New York Post, who reported this exclusively. Twitter preventing people from sharing the link on the GOP House Judiciary Committee website. This is insane. I mean, what are we, China? It certainly feels that way. So listen up. I'm digging deep. There are things that every single American needs to know right now, and we need to get the word out while we can. I'm sure they're going to try and shut this down too. That's just the world we live in these days. Hello, everyone. I am Trish Regan. This is the Trish Regan Show. It is good to see you all here. So good to hear from all of you. I like, Tony, that you like the home economics thing. Yes, that's a very important part of what we're talking about. But tonight, I really want to focus on this Joe Biden stuff and Hunter Biden stuff. Here's what we know. Okay, there are new emails that were just revealed thanks to the New York Post, which seem to show how Hunter Biden, the son of the former Vice President Joe Biden, the man who's running for president of the United States, was somehow pursuing lucrative deals involving China's largest private energy company, including one deal that would, quote, be interesting for me and my family, end quote. That's from Hunter Biden, per the email. And Twitter and Facebook and the rest of social media right now, they are trying to hide all this. They don't want you to know. For some reason, they're trying to protect Hunter and Joe Biden. Anyway, China, Ukraine, you name it, Hunter Biden seemingly is involved. I've got new intel for you tonight on Ukraine, but first, China. Let's get to China. In an email dated from May 13th, 2017, this would have been after his father had left office, there was a subject line called expectations. Now, in this email of expectations is included details of a remuneration package for 6 people involved in this unspecified business venture. And it talked about equity. Hello in Tennessee. Good to see you, Lily Mel. Hello. It talked about equity and ownership in the business, a salary of $850 for Hunter, and some, quote, office expectations for him. Meanwhile, we got another email sent by Biden as part of an August 2nd, 2017 chain in which he allegedly struck some kind of deal here with the now since vanished chairman of CEFC, Yi Jinping, for half ownership of a holding company that was expected to provide Biden with more than $10 million a year for making introductions. Wow. So Yi, from China, he had ties to the Chinese military, ties to China's intelligence services, and he actually hasn't been heard of since he was taken into custody by Chinese authorities back in 2018. And the Chinese energy company that went bankrupt earlier this year was his. And of course, as I said, according to reports, it's gone bankrupt. So there goes Hunter Biden's deal. But here's the thing. We know from these emails that Hunter Biden was corresponding with Yi and that somehow Yi had sweetened the deal in terms of the contract, 3-year consulting deal, going to pay him $10 million annually for introductions alone. So he's the $10 million guy. Just for these introductions, he's going to make $10 million from this Chinese energy company? Come on, stop there, okay? $10 million. Think about that for introductions alone. And you can't tell me that China isn't hoping that Joe Biden wins? I mean, what the heck? They're extending a contract to his son. They're willing to pay him insane amounts of money for introductions alone because let's be very clear, it's not like this guy had a whole lot going on, right? It's not like he was steeped in the energy business or the investment business for that matter. He kind of had a rather sketchy past, and I don't want to get into it, but you know all the details, some of which have come out quite recently. And so he's got this past, which really doesn't qualify him, shall we say, to be head of an energy company or to be head of, on the board, shall we say, at Burisma over in Ukraine. He doesn't speak Mandarin. He doesn't have some background in Ukrainian business. So what is he doing? Meanwhile, this is just the latest email, and this trove of data, right, that was recovered by the owner of a computer repair shop in Delaware, because apparently someone, it's believed it might have been Hunter Biden, brought his MacBook Pro laptop in, dropped it off in April 2019, and then never came back for it. So the guy who's got the computer in Delaware is going, wow. He turns it over to the FBI. He keeps a copy of the contents, which he then shared with the former mayor, Rudy Giuliani, who then shared it with the New York Post. Great to see you guys. Thank you. Thank you so much, Chenye. Good to have you here. Nicholas, good to see you. Yes, the swamp is a big problem, and this is an example of it, right? This is the swamp. This is what we're all fighting back against. We don't want this kind of stuff going on. You know, and for some reason, we're not supposed to talk about this right now. I mean, again, we may get shut down any minute here, but we're not supposed to be talking about this because the New York Post actually saw its Twitter account locked because it tweeted this story, and anybody who tweeted the story got their Twitter account locked. I mean, you gotta be kidding me. Are we suddenly turning into China? Do we no longer have our First Amendment right? I have a lot to say on that. And I'm going to save that. So let's get back to what has actually happened here. Now, we know that there was a meeting. We know that there was this meeting in person between one of Hunter Biden's bosses at Burisma, the Ukrainian energy company, right, that he was on the board of, and the vice president then of the United States, Joe Biden. Good evening, David. David, good to see you. Yeah, fingerprints, good idea. Jim, good to see you. Michigan Women for Trump. That's nice to see. He's struggling a little bit in the women department, so it's good to see some Michigan women there liking him. Anyway, back to this Ukrainian thing. So this is new, right? We hadn't heard of this meeting until now. As a result of these emails, we now know about the meeting. And there's this email you see that was uncovered in this same laptop. And the email was from a guy named Vadim Poskarski, and he was the #3 executive at Burisma, and it was sent to Hunter on April 17th, 2017, about a year after Hunter had joined the board. And it said, "Dear Hunter, thank you for inviting me to DC and giving me an opportunity to meet your father and spend some time together. It was an honor and a pleasure." I mean, wow. Okay, so now we know that there was this meeting, and yet, for some reason, Joe Biden was so confident, right, when he told the media in an interview about a year ago that he didn't know anything about his son's business. Really? Because his son somehow got this meeting orchestrated. So he had to maybe know a little something. I mean, has he just conveniently forgotten? Good to see you all here. Perry, welcome. David, those Democrats are pretty crazy right now. But you know what's more troublesome to me? You know what's really bothersome to me right now, and I think we should all be watching this story very, very carefully, is what the media is doing. So some folks in the media have tried to report this out, and yet they get shut down, right? They get shut down immediately, and that's a real problem. So we need to get to that. I need to talk to you about that because I'm getting really tired of this cancel culture, and I think it's a really dangerous thing for our country right now. Meanwhile, some members of the media, the ones that are in good graces, I guess, with Twitter and the other, big tech companies, those members of the media are trying to point out, well, the correlation between what the Trump kids are doing and what Hunter Biden did, which to me is bizarre. I mean, it's like apples to oranges, right? I mean, Biden was totally unqualified for the job. The guy, I'm sorry, I mean, sort of kind of a disaster, right? I feel bad for him. He had the drug problem, horrible stuff. Horrible, took up with his brother's widow and ran off with the stripper and then the shotgun marriage. Anyway, I don't even want to get into it, but it's unfortunate, right? He has not perhaps made the best choices, but nonetheless, for him to go from sort of that rather questionable background to these rather lucrative positions, it's sort of kind of crazy. And to compare it with the Trump kids who have actually, had entire lives working for their dad, it's a little bit different. And I think that needs to be sort of distinguished, right? Two kind of different scenarios. One company that was already running versus, all this stuff that starts springing up that, you kind of have to say is probably linked to the influence he had. I mean, the guy from China telling him 10 million bucks a year for introductions. Meanwhile, this story just keeps on getting shut down. They are coming very much for our First Amendment. You know, it's so great to see so many people actually from China here tonight. I'm a big fan of the Chinese people. The CCP, not so much. The CCP is a problem, but it's really great to see how many freedom fighters are out there in China and tuning in. And I know the risk that you take, you know, just tuning into this right now. But it's clear to me we have a problem, right? We have a problem. This is kind of a big story that the New York Post reported on. And what happened? You see Twitter blocking the story, not allowing it to be shared. Twitter has even locked the account of the Trump campaign, @TeamTrump, for daring to share this story. Twitter locks the account of the White House spokesperson, Kayleigh McEnany, because she dared to share this story. And here we are days away from the election, right? And they're doing all this. I mean, look, I'm upset. You should be upset. People should all be upset because this was a major news organization with a major story, and we're not supposed to discuss it. I mean, don't you think that we deserve some answers here? Don't we deserve that? He is running for president after all. You know, if the tables were turned, it would be very different, I suspect. So Jack Dorsey, he's the founder and CEO of Twitter. He came out and said, and I quote here, "Our communication around our actions at the New York Post article was not great, and blocking URL sharing via tweet or DM with zero context as to why we're blocking, unacceptable." So now they've come forward and said, well, there's all this context. And the context, allegedly, is that somehow this was hacked material and they don't share hacked material. So I'm not so sure about that because it's not really hacked material. In other words, if somebody leaves their computer at a repair shop, never comes back for it, isn't it a little bit like leaving, you know, your little black book at a restaurant with details of your personal life and maybe dubious activities, and if the FBI gets it, it's kind of fair game? I'm not entirely sure why this would be seen as hacking, because it's not actually hacking. So why then is social media shutting this down? Why are they protecting Joe Biden? If the tables were reversed, you know that they would not be protecting Donald Trump if they somehow got their hands on tax records, even if it was a hack. I have a feeling that that story would be out there, right? And what's trending right now on Twitter? Excuses. Excuse stories for Biden. I mean, this is what they're trying to communicate. Excuses for him. I'm sorry, the guy needs to answer the questions, okay? We will not be silent. We will not be censored. We demand truth. We demand freedom. We demand the right to have our own opinions. This big tech censorship, it's got to end. You know, it can't continue on like this. You know, it sounds like a lot of you agree with me. And yes, Jake, I never really sugarcoat anything, for better or for worse. I wear my heart on my sleeve, and occasionally it gets me into trouble, but so be it. Those are risks I'm willing to take, because when it comes to our freedom of speech, our First Amendment, there is nothing that I hold more dear. And to me, you know what? You got to be able to stand behind your word and your opinion. And everybody's entitled to them. This is part of how we grow, right? As a country, we have to welcome in all kinds of diverse ideas. And when you're willing to say, I'm going to shut that down, I'm going to shut it out, I don't want to hear it, you know, that's how we regress. If we want to continue progressing as a nation, as a people, then we need to embrace lots of different ideas. It's called intellectual diversity. The left keeps telling us how much they love diversity. I do too. It's one of our greatest strengths in this country, but we need intellectual diversity. Thank you very much. Good to see you all. Thank you, Nasir. I really appreciate that. You know, I hope that you know, you can always trust my word. I mean, that's the reality of it. And I'm not beholden to anyone or anything, and I'm just here for you guys to tell the truth and to make sure that everyone has a voice. Everyone has a voice. And I don't like this big tech censorship. It really and truly has to end. You know, the other thing that I'm watching today, the jobs report came in a little bit weak. I don't know if you guys saw. I told you they'd try and shut us down, right? Did I not? Anyway, I think I might have hit something. But I don't know where you guys lost me, but I was saying I'm very concerned that the Democrats effectively are trying to, in some ways, sabotage our economy. In other words, it's not in their interest, right? It's not in their interest to see the economy succeed. Because if it succeeds, then Donald Trump actually fares better and maybe has a better shot at this election. So in turn, they can actually be helping themselves by not coming forward with stimulus. And they're so close, right? 2.2 to 1.8, they're so close. They could so get there. You know, where there's a will, there's a way, but unfortunately, there's no will. There is no will right now out of Washington, D.C., and certainly out of Nancy Pelosi, and that's sort of tragic. I think you guys can hear me now, which is good. Yeah, magical hands. You know, it's because I talk with my hands, even though I'm Irish. Right? I must have been Italian in another life. I do speak Italian, so maybe that's where that comes from. Anyway, again, I just want to say it's really good to see you all tonight, and I really appreciate. Look at this. We have so many people from China take down CCP. That's really great. I don't know. I mean, it's really kind of alarming when you think of the power of the CCP, and then you think of even what's happening here. Lou Hand writing, Hunter goes to Club Fed and Joe goes to Club Meds. You know, I do think the CCP is increasingly becoming such a presence, right, on the international stage. And if we are not careful, we're going to wake up and we're all going to be answering to the CCP. And that's going to be really, really, really problematic for us and for future generations. And look, we've had a good 200 and some odd year run, right? And the thing is, we need to keep it going for another 100 or 200 years. China's out there with a 100-year plan. We don't really have that kind of long-distance approach to our policy. Whether it be international, whether it be economic. And I think, you know, for the first time you had this guy come along that really and truly was willing to change that. And it was hard, and it's going to continue to be hard. Anyway, I think we get some agreement, take down the CCP. So we'll leave it on that tonight. Thank you again for tuning in, and I will see you right back here tomorrow. Have a good one.